Hello, my name is Leonard Sweet. I'm Dr. Sweet's son, and it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you today Preach the Story's inaugural vlog. This will be for March 22nd, 2020, and from now on Sunday night or Monday morning of every week, a new expository on semiotics will be posted with Dr. Sweet explaining why he chose each lectionary reading. He will also help you read the signs, fondle the details, and spot the seminal metaphors, the condensed signs and stories that are the key for preaching to this digital culture. So without further ado, let's get Dr. Sweet to prospect our lectionary readings for today, which are Ephesians 5, 8 through 14, and John 9, 1 through 41.
I am all excited. This is the first video blog of Preach the Story. And it's our inaugural one, and I welcome you to it and hope you will join us for the journey. What we're doing here is, instead of being a Gutenberg person, which I've been for all of my life and provided manuscripts every week based on the lectionary, we're going to do now video blogs, just kind of video presentations of what possibilities are in the lectionary readings, where are the metaphors that are just jumping out at me and at us, and some narratives that you might want to spin and to play with. So you're not going to get a full manuscript here, but you're going to get some metaphors and approaches, the trajectories, if you will, the semiotics of how to approach these texts and which ones I choose and why. So for the fourth Sunday in Lent, this is March 22nd, we have 4 readings. The psalm is one that's Psalm 23, and it would be easy to go there, but I would really save that one for Holy Saturday, if you're going to do something on Holy Saturday, and I hope you do, because I think it's the undiscovered liturgical celebration of the future. But you got Psalm 22, the song that Jesus sang from the cross on Good Friday. Psalm 23 is the Holy Saturday text, the valley of the shadow of death. He descended into hell. And then Psalm 24. This is an ensemble of psalms that were often put together, but the Christians took them, and this is Psalm 24, the resurrection psalm. So if you're going to do Psalm 23, I'd save it for a good Holy Saturday, No Name Saturday, this really important celebration that we still haven't discovered yet. So the gospel reading and the epistle reading, one is from John, and it's the whole story of Bartimaeus. The whole story of Bartimaeus. So it's 41 verses. I'm not going to read it now, but you can read it. It's a great, great story. The other one is a passage that is not as familiar, but you know portions of it from Ephesians, the 5th chapter, and the famous "I am the light of the world," and what does it mean to live as children of light. So I'm just going to say something about both of these, because I think these are the ones that you really ought to consider and think about for your preaching. And first of all, the blind Bartimaeus story. This is, and we tend to forget that Jesus loved humor, and he played with images. In fact, the church was founded on a pun, Petros on this Petra, I'll build my church. And right here in this text, Jesus is playing and punning with who is blind. So this is, as you're reading these 41 verses, be open to the playfulness and the levity. We do gravity really well. We got to learn some levity here. And Jesus is here. Here's a blind man who can't see but becomes sighted. And opposing this is a whole other story of sighted religious establishment people, Pharisees, who are blind but don't know it. But when given the chance to see, they become willfully and culpably blind. So you've got this Jesus humor here that's just kind of shining through. Now, Jesus is in trouble because he's, quote, healing on the Sabbath. Now, you know that when 2 stars in the evening sky show up on that evening of the Sabbath, all work stops. You drop dead. Everything you're doing in the Sabbath has begun. And so Jesus you could technically heal people who were sick in emergencies, but blindness was not considered that kind of a severe sickness and an emergency. So Jesus is in trouble. If I were titling this sermon, you're going to do this, I'd call it, "Here's Mud in Your Eye." I mean, because you remember how Jesus heals the blind man? He recreates what God does in the earliest creation account, Genesis 2, and scoops out of the ground some clay and fashions it, mixes dirt and water, gets mud, and then fashions us. Our first introduction to God is God's playing in the mud, making mud pies. And so Jesus is recreating the initial Adam, the original whole human being, and does that here with the mud that goes in his eyes, and then he comes to life. Just beware that here's mud in your eye used to be a toast. And it was not a very nice toast, because when somebody toasted here's mud in your eye, it meant it was a celebration of themselves, because they were the ones, when you have racehorses and the horses in front, everybody else gets mud in their eye. So the person toasting it, here's to mud in your eye, is toasting, I'm going to be the winner. When Christians toast, here's mud in your eye, it's may there be healing, may there be wholeness, may there be holiness in your life. So it's a whole different toast. And so you could play with that theme of here's mud in your eye. I would also, for me, if I were doing this just right now, this time, what hits me really hard is verses 4 to 5. And let me just read these for you. We must work the works of him who sent me. Now you notice that we must work the works of him who sent me. While it is day, night is coming, when no one can work. We. Did you hear that? We, meaning all of us. You are an answer to Jesus' prayer. You are an answer to prayer, but it's a prayer Jesus prayed. There are a couple of prayers that Jesus prayed that we answer with our lives. One is in Matthew 9:38, pray that the Lord will send out workers for the harvest. And here we are, you and I are workers. Now, an answer to Jesus' prayer that God would send workers that will continue to work that harvest, and that harvest of the fields of our day, our moment, own now. Not a now that we wish we had, but the now that we actually have. So one is the answer. We are answers to prayer. Here we are answers to prayer that Jesus is saying, we, all of Jesus' disciples, from then till now, he means you. It's a collective we are an answer to that prayer, that we continue to do Jesus' ministry. And he's praying for us as we do our ministry. So you might really want to focus on your people that each one of them this morning is an answer to a prayer that Jesus prayed. This one, the one that's in Matthew 9, here in John 9. Now, the pool of Siloam, just so it's clear here why this is so significant, is it's key to the story, but it's the point where the water fountain that supplied water to Jerusalem entered the city into the open air basin. So it was an open pool that was being fed from the mountains to Jerusalem, and so it has huge symbolic value. Now, the other part of this story that's really interesting is that it says that he's old enough to give his own testimony, and that may slip by really quick, but just to refresh your memory, that in Jesus' day, you had to wait until 40 to have legal status to your testimony. In other words, up until 40, and 40 in the first century was ancient of days. I mean, you were like a senior citizen. And not until you reached 40 did you have the gravitas and the authoritas, the authority and the gravity to have your single testimony have legal standing in court. Up until then, you had to have other witnesses, you had to come as a team. But at 40, what's amazing here is that this guy's got to be over 40, and his parents are still alive. So his parents have got to be in their 50s, because they got married very early then, and had children, in their teens. But they're 50s and 60s. So we have some people here that are very, in terms of the first century, very, 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 very old. So I really, I love this text, the blind Bartimaeus story. If you're going to preach it, don't forget the humor, don't forget the personal we and me, but the we means you, me, now, today, we stand as an answer to Jesus' prayer. Now, the other one is, and both of these, if I were writing this, I'm not sure which I'd do, because I'm not sure I could pick between these two, because they're so incredible, both of them, is Ephesians, the 5th chapter. And let me just begin a little bit of this. Once you were darkness, but now in the Lord you are light. Live as children of the light. This is a powerful metaphor in the Bible. I mean, the Bible begins with light in Genesis 1. It ends with light, Revelation. There's two understandings of God as light in the Hebrew Scriptures. Light is a metaphor for God is light. But there's a second meaning of light. Not just God is light, but God gives us the light to show us the way. And that is the Torah. The Torah is light. It is a light unto our path and a lamp unto our feet, as the writers put it. Now, both those understandings of light continue. God is still light in the Second Testament, here. And the Torah is still light, the lamp unto our path and light unto our feet. But the Torah now is Jesus. Jesus is Torah. He is the fulfillment, the completion of the Torah. So he is the light of the world. While you have the light, trust in the light that you may become sons and daughters of the light. God's primal decree is light. God called the creation into being with words, you remember? Let there be light. The light of the world was called into creation with the words, let it be. But I want you to hear two things here with let be. Let be light, but let be love. And this is a kind of a distinction that is without a distinction, because light and love, in a biblical sense, are in many ways the same thing. The soul hungers and thirsts for two things, light and love. To say you hunger and thirst for righteousness is to say you yearn for light. You yearn for love. And Jesus is the very definition of both. Both the light of the world and the world's greatest lover. Light, love. So if then that Jesus is the light of the world and the world's greatest lover, then the one question for the church is always the same. How well do we light the world? How well do we love each other and love the world God gave us? So this light and love, you cannot separate light and love. You hear me? And this is what's coming through here in Paul's epistle here. But it's a little more complex, because Lucifer also means light bearer. Because evil doesn't appear as evil. It appears as good, as light. And so you might say there are really two light bearers in the world. Jesus and Lucifer, each with its own light platform. Jesus, light, I'm the light of the world, lose yourself. Lucifer, light, you are the light of the world, selfie yourself. So you got two very different approaches to what is light. The light bearer of Lucifer and the light bearer of Christ. When we refract his voice and we radiate his light, we lengthen Jesus' stride in the world. So that star of Bethlehem was not a shooting star that flashes in the celebrity heavens before burning up as it falls to earth. But it's a permanent, steadfast celestial light that radiates truth and forms the heart of a constellation by which we navigate a meteoric life which God is calling us all to live. So the glory of the Lord that shines is always light and love. Angels shine the glory of God. Glory shines. Is it shining all around us? I love how Bach signed all of his works Sole Deo Gloria, because he wanted his music to be a shining Sole Deo Gloria. To the glory of God alone, every piece of work, a shining, every one of you, both an answer to a prayer, a Jesus prayer, and a shining of God's glory. That shining can be problematic at times. If you have a candle and you burn it down a while, and there comes a time when that wick gets so big and encrusted with dirt and grime that it actually generates more darkness, more blackness than it does light. And so what you have to do is you have to trim the wick. In other words, you have to make the candle smaller so the light can get bigger. And in all of our lives, this is exactly what we have to do. We have to trim our wicks. We have to get smaller, get rid of all that crustiness and that grime and dirt so that we can burn brighter and be a more radiant, shining light. An untrimmed wick can give off a more stultifying smoke than illuminating light. When's the last time you trimmed your wick? Made your candle smaller so that it can burn the world brighter and fuller. I have here something that's called a poppy head. These are at the end of pews, and you find them in churches all over Europe and some even the U.S. But the symbolism that came on poppy heads was really significant. And you see here the symbolism of owls. And sometimes they actually put owls on poppy heads to remind us that even in the dark, the candle shines brightest. And the owls can see best in the dark. They see really well in the dark. And we're called not to be afraid of dark places, but to enter those dark places with the wisdom of the gospel and to enter it with goodness and beauty and truth. A poppy head taken from an English church. I didn't take it off. I just got it from somebody who did. They were closing the church, and there it is. I want to end with this. It's a priestly benediction, but it's a better translation, I think, of the one that we all know, the Aaronic one, the Deuteronomic one, the priestly one. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. That's the radiance, the light, and be gracious unto you. And then we all always translate it, may the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Now, if you've got kids, you don't say to them, lift up your countenance, raise your head, lift up your countenance. That's an old language. So here's a better benediction that you might use on this fourth Sunday of Lent. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. You ready? And may God's face radiate with joy because of you. May God's face shine, radiate with joy. Are you radiating that joy, that light of the world? Do you go out in the world and realize you are an answer to a Jesus prayer? So some thoughts on how you might preach these incredible texts, trajectories you might take on the fourth Sunday of Lent.
Semiotics is the art of ostraneni, or defamiliarization, of making the familiar strange so that it can become fresh again, and the art of angling, of turning things askew, upside down, inside out, cattywampus, sunny side up, over easy, scrambled, hard-boiled. We hope you enjoyed today's semiotics of the greatest story ever told, but always remember, it's more important you prepare the preacher than you prepare the sermon. Until next time, grace and peace.